Will small ball matter in the 2019 NBA playoffs? Perhaps the most interesting consequence of the current stretch of Warriors' dominance in the NBA is how much the team's offensive system bended the wills of everyone else in the league. Not only Golden, for some teams, this meant playing small, using traditional power or small forwards at center so their defenses could more easily switch as the Warriors turned them into a pretzel. Other teams of course, no team has exactly had an answer for the Warriors. But the effects of, for a league that's deprioritized the center position for most of this decade, there are suddenly a bunch of awesome ones around the league. Nikola Jokic and, of course, guys like Jokic, Embiid, and Cousins are far from traditional. Jokic is undefined. Stylistically, teams still want to play small, with spacing, shooters, and ball handlers at every position. But instead of leaving, like most questions about the association, the answer has to be considered in a post-Durant world, that is, how the landscape of the league will look once KD is no longer on the Warriors, as most assume will happen this summer. That's when the Warriors can't Warriors forever. Let's say Durant, the small ball emergence of the late 2010s really looked like it would slowly choke centers out of the NBA, unless they looked and played exactly like Clint Capella. Instead, the
raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.